series will be one that will impact you and also add value to you as a believer to help build your body, soul, and spirit in every way that you so desire. I'd just like us to take a short word of prayer even before we begin this session. I'd just like us to just go ahead and just thank the Lord for another time in his presence, for another time to learn from his children, for another time for us to pick some truth from what God expects us to know about how to navigate the life's challenge and how to build competence and how to become better as believers in our everyday life. I'd just like you to just go ahead and just say, Father, I thank you. Thank you for another time to learn, another time to acquire knowledge that will help, that will equip me for everyday's life, for every day, and for everything that I will be faced with in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Father. Father, we give you all the glory. We give you all the praise, Lord. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen and amen. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the brand new Revealed Truth series. And I would like to welcome every one of you and thank you for joining us early. There's a lot we'll be learning here. The mode at which we'll be having this session will be more of an interactive session where we invite our speakers and then we go into conversations with them by asking them questions and they will in turn answer. It's an open platform to also allow us to throw in our questions during the course of this session, just in case there are some questions or there are some comments that are coming up and you need more clarity about it, or probably you have some concerns or you have some questions that will be bothering you. Please, I would like you to write it and just drop it in the chat room, or you can send it privately to me in the chat room, right? My name is Deji. So in the chat room, you see Deji. You can just privately send it to me. I can keep it anonymous and I will just read the questions and our speaker will be able to take it. But during the course of this session, it's going to be interactive. We'll be talking to our speaker, asking them some certain questions, and we'll expect them to respond to them and do justice to some of these questions. Okay. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our speaker. But before I welcome him, I would like to just let us know something about to understand who this speaker is. I know some of us have met him in one way or the other, but we do not really know him, what his profession is and what he does professionally. And basically that's what will be. Well, I would like to introduce him right away. So our speaker today is Dr. Mike Adeyemi. He's a medical doctor with keen interest in intersection of medicine, global health, and technology. Now, he has worked as a program manager and clinical lead in diverse contexts across Africa, Southeast Asia, and Middle East. He currently works as a specialist advisor in global health and is also the co-founder of Innovate Health Hub. I have been part of the Innovate Health Hub, so I've seen most of the things that he's been sharing. And this platform facilitates the collaboration of the development of health innovators. And that is basically who Dr. Mike is. I'd like us to just welcome together Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike, please, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Prodigy.
Thank you. Thank you for honoring our invitation. I know not had you at in any of our sessions, but I believe that this period we want to learn from you. We know that God has blessed you. God has given you the exposure, and he's giving you so much bandwidth to be able to accommodate a lot of things and also grow. And you're an epitome of growth. I know you don't like talking about you in this way. You're the epitome of growth. You have grown from one phase of your life, and we've seen consistent growth. And that is why we feel that you're the best person who can do justice at this moment for us. Today, our topic here is building a growth mindset, embracing change. I'm going to give you the floor for you to just speak to us about what building a growth mindset really is and how does it enable us to be able to embrace change. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction and for the kind words. Right, I'm really humbled. See, I'm actually excited that we're having this conversation at this point in time. It is quite timely, and I'm also grateful to the leadership of the church, for this, for the thoughtfulness one, and also for the opportunity to really have or to rub minds, right? Basically, yeah, I think innovation is something I'm interested in so much, as you know, and I'm happy that this is also in line with, of course, what I do, even though it's more within the health space. But again, I try to also to extend it beyond health, basically. Yeah. Now coming to growth mindset, right? I mean, before I actually dive into what growth mindset is, and also, anyway, talking about the word dive, I don't know how many of us do a lot of social media. Once in a while, I check into social media, but dive is one word that became sensational, particularly on social media for those that do social media. And last week, and what I could just pick from that is also that it is also related to what to mindset. Now, coming back to growth mindset, growth mindset is actually is predicated on the fact that that we can learn skills, we can develop talent, and we can develop intelligence, through dedication, through effort and perseverance. And if you stretch this a little bit, you also see that at the core of growth mindset, of course, is innovation, right? And I like to tell people that there's no how you want to talk about innovation without a growth mindset, because innovation is an offshoot of a growth mindset. And when people ask me that, okay, what do you do? How do you innovate? Yeah, ordinarily we say that to innovate or to ability to be able to come up with disruptive innovation, you have to think outside the box. This is what we hear often, which is fantastic, right? But to be able to really stretch it more, or to be able to have that mindset that continue to develop ideas, you don't just create, you don't just think outside the box. You must also be ready to create new box in some instances, right? So when we say that growth mindset, it also does mean that there is also fixed mindset, basically. And the big difference between these is about three keywords, which is what I want us to actually kind of hold on to strongly. And those words are perseverance, dedication, and effort. For someone to move from fixed mindset to a growth mindset, they must be able to put these keywords into practice, right? But again, why are we having this kind of conversation at this point in time? Why are we talking about growth mindset? You see, we are currently in the world, we are at a stage where there is a lot of uncertainty, there is a lot of ambiguity. I don't know how many of us have heard about this word VUCA. VUCA is, that's VUCA, is actually a word, it's an acronym actually that originated from the US military, and then they were using it to describe, I think that was during the Cold War, where they were using it to describe events that were, warfare that were asymmetric, right? That were full with uncertainty, and that were difficult to really plan around, right? So, and this word, this particular acronym VUCA, also became something that business leaders started using, recently, to be able to describe the complexity within business. So as an acronym, the V is volatility, which shows that things are changing very fast, especially if you look at the modern world compared to historic where things can easily are simple, but now we have a lot of complexity and rapid changes happening. Then we have the U that is filled with uncertainty. Then we have, of course, C when we talk about complexity and ambiguity. It's difficult for you to say, to discuss things within the premise of yes and no. There are now gray areas that you have to be careful about, right? And these are things that are actually putting people on the edge, basically, in terms of this. Then, but what is actually triggering this complexity or ambiguity? One of them is technological advancement. Today, for some of you that also, of course, that also follow this, today we'll talk about ChatGPT. Tomorrow we're talking about something else. For me, one of the interesting one for me, for those that have been close to me also, would have probably heard me talk about the gene editing tech, which is more something that is relevant in healthcare that can help to cure diseases. However, what this technology does, of course, which is called CRISPR, is that it can edit gene, and what it means is that in future, people can decide, for instance, to say, okay, I want to have this kind of baby, and they will help you to edit this kind of gene, or I mean, they edit the gene, and you have this kind of baby, maybe that's 10 feet tall, all those stuff. But the implication of this kind of technology that's also putting people on the edge is that, of course, that we've seen in science fiction is also the fact that countries can decide the kind of soldiers, that they want to have. So you have to have a very strong soldier. These are things that are changing rapidly, that are causing people to become uncomfortable, with this advancement. Then secondly, also that is causing a lot of changes and volatility and also ambiguity is climate change. We saw flooding and everything that's happening. These are destabilizing what we are used to, right? Then the last one is conflict, war, of course. We know what is going on in the Middle East, the Iran, Israel issue. And what this is doing is actually about the fact that in future, we're going to see alignment and realignment of power in the world. But again, what this holds is the fact that for you to be able to be on top of your game during this kind of period, then you must have a mindset that embraces change, because within all these changes, because the fact is that all these things are happening, we might not be able to control them, definitely, except probably if you work probably as a private climate change advocate or something, but there is a little to nothing we can do, but we can decide how we respond to them. And how we respond to them is determined by our mindset, basically. And I think that is the whole essence of a growth mindset, to be able to see challenges, but to be able to see opportunities in challenges. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. I like the fact that you rounded up that speech with seeing opportunities in challenges. I would like to request, can you share some examples of some problems or issues or challenges that individuals, anybody who is listening here, can use as a springboard for growth, or to give them more like a motivation to want to do something different in their life? Most of us are faced with challenges every day, right? There's some people here who are on this call who are not at the level where some other people are. Probably they're faced with one challenge or the other. We have various challenges at various phases of our life. How do people in that state begin to transform those challenges into opportunities, using this growth mindset thought or this thought process?
Yeah, I think for me, one thing that a go-to story that has to do with, okay, somebody using failure as a springboard for innovation or for developing or for success. I think the go-to for everyone would be Thomas Edison. I think something that we all know very well. I love the Thomas Edison story because of course it's about invention of light bulb. But for me, what is profound about Thomas Edison is not just the invention of light bulb. It's actually about the mindset, at every attempt, despite the failure, I know when they asked Thomas Edison about his failure, he said something that was quite profound, and that was the fact that he didn't see it as failure. He saw it as a way not to do it the other time. And that's what growth mindset is all about. Growth mindset actually helps you to see things, to see failure in a different way. And that's why when I discuss with people, I talk about the fact that if you really want to grow, then you have to make an attempt. If you don't make an attempt, then you may not be able to learn. And that also brings me to the fact that you have to, as much as possible, get involved as early as possible, or in what people talk about, fail fast as much as possible. And even when you fail fast, you must be able to fix it fast so that you can learn fast. So the whole attempt of growth mindset is about that. There's a feedback mechanism that helps you to fine tune your initial step. It could be something that you've done before and didn't really work out the way you want. Then of course you get feedback about it. Then you have to use the feedback to fine tune it, and that's the essence of growth mindset. And that's actually what makes it different from fixed mindset, that first find difficult to really accept the fact that feedback is necessary, or even to put up their activity or their work for feedback, basically.
Yeah. So let me ask with a typical example. Now, we've had people who have migrated from some other country into the UK, for example, right? In the context of the country where they are coming from, right? They were extraordinary superstars there. They were financially buoyant. Their skill set was the best out there in their country. Now they're coming into the United Kingdom, and it looks like all the skills that they've acquired and all the things that they've known look like nothing over here. What kind of advice would you give that kind of person in that kind of situation using this growth mindset theory here?
Yeah, I think this is something that most people and every one of us we face something like this, especially you come to an environment that you're not used to. I think first and the most first is to understand the fact that you have to see it as an opportunity, one, and you have to also identify the fact that there is there is a need for you to adapt. So first, you see an opportunity, you have to be curious about the environment, right, as much as possible. Then again, is that you have to also have a kind of positive feedback for yourself, because again, one of the issue with a good, with people coming to an environment is also to feel that they don't belong, despite the fact that they have a lot of experience in that field, right? So you're in a setting where you're probably new to the setting, and I remember a friend told me that, at one point I was going to doubt if I were really good enough. And this is actually what happened when we come to settings that we are not used to. So the first thing is that you have to identify that there's possibility that can happen. Then again is that you have to also remind yourself that, okay, you're in a new environment and you have the possibility to also learn something new. Then the last one I will also say is that always be curious as much as possible. If you're curious enough, then you get to identify some new things that also help you to grow.
Thank you. We've heard about the imposter syndrome. Now, the imposter syndrome is it's a real life struggle that people face right now. And this is where many professionals, right, have this mindset of feeling inadequate. They feel that they don't know enough, or they are not enough. And they approach life with that mindset. Now, with your experience of working with people, how do you support those kind of people to be able to learn and innovate and also grow? How can they get out of that situation where they feel that everyone around them is better than them? They feel that the business, the company where they work is doing them a favor. They feel that the environment is doing them a favor. They feel that they are the bottom of the food chain. How do you guide such people in their thought process to begin to think of growth as a good thing and to begin to improve on themselves?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think again, I need to be careful to use syndrome, because I think as far as I know, imposter syndrome, as it were, is not a clinical diagnosis anyway. Just to leave out medical semantics anyway. So yeah, I think this is something that most of us actually feel, especially if you come to new environment. And but interestingly is that this is actually very common. Imposter syndrome is, I think there's a study that shows that about 80% of people in a new environment or a new job tend to have this kind of feeling. And interestingly is that it's also common among people that are in an environment where there's what I call underrepresented identity. So I think that should ring a bell. If you are in an environment where you happen to be the only one, you might start feeling inadequate, right? You might start feeling that, oh, maybe I'm not doing enough. Then secondly also is that even in as much as, of course, the conversation is about people trying to be able to help themselves, to be able to innovate within this kind of environment, a large chunk of managing imposter syndrome, or what I would call phenomenon, actually lies in the organizational structure. But again, I'm not going to go into that. We'll just talk about individuals that are quite experiencing something like this. I think the first thing one needs to do is that you have to first identify, you have to be aware that you have this kind of phenomenon, imposter phenomenon. Then secondly is that you have to learn to celebrate your success, as much as possible. I think it has also been identified that people with imposter syndrome tend to minimize their progress, and try to maximize, the negative part. Then you have to be able to celebrate those success. Secondly, again, what I would say is that you have to be able to discuss this with somebody that is trusted. And what that does is that when you are open to discussing it, you'll be surprised that a lot of people are actually going through that. Then thirdly, I would say also is to talk about your failure. Talk about your failure. And what that does also is that it helps you, it releases you from all the fear of oh, maybe I've failed also, Then finally, I would say again is that in as much as you celebrate your success, is that you should be less critical about yourself, because all this, what it does is that it gives kind of a negative feedback to you and doesn't really help you to be able to achieve your best self, basically.
Yeah, thank you for that response. We're going to go into more questions, but please, everyone who is here, in case you have questions, right, and you'd like to ask these questions, you can drop them in the chat room. We'll take those questions, and just in case you would like to ask questions, you can just signify and unmute your mic and ask these questions, and Dr. Mike here will attend to it. For those who are just joining us, we're speaking to Dr. Mike Adeyemi, and he's been in the health and and the innovation sector, and he's had great experience working with people across various continents. At least from the time we've spoken together, I've learned a lot from him. Dr. Mike, I would like to go into this part of people who are stuck in repetitive work. Repetitive work, for example, somebody who is doing a customer service job, a job that is regimented, or someone who is working in probably the healthcare sector, probably as a support worker, who is doing it because they just want to survive at this moment, right? Some of them, that's not their chosen career, that's not what they love. How can the growth mindset support such kind of person, right? Yeah, for the person to begin to see things outside their day-to-day role and to prepare for the future.
All right. Yeah. So I think I will use myself as an example, right? So when I take up new venture, or probably take up a new job, I mean, what I look out for is to look out for what are the needed skills or skill sets, to be able to achieve, the job, to achieve my objectives in the job, basically. But again, is that I know that at some point in time, you get to that point where you just realize that, oh, you've done everything. There's nothing new to learn. There's nothing new to be done. Then of course it becomes boring. And I think this is also something that is a little bit common, especially when you have this kind of job that is not something you want to do in the first instance. Yeah, I think if that happens, I think the next is to move to the next step. The next step is to, what I say is to see it as an opportunity to innovate. So of course, it becomes boring. Then this is an opportunity to innovate. And what do I mean when I use innovate? I'm not talking about big innovation. And this actually reminds me of what Pastor Bayo said on Sunday about when he was an executive assistant or thereabout. And at one point, he was sending emails to people to motivate them. That wasn't part of the job description. It's just about innovation. It's about to look for, okay, what else can I do? And people appreciated that, right? So, I mean, if you are in this kind of position, is to, as a care, you are into customer care, is to look at how do I improve my customer experience, basically. And this may not be written in your job description, but it also helps you to, of course, be open-minded and to be able to innovate around what is available for you at that point in time.
Thank you. Thank you for the response. So the floor is open, please. If you have questions, please, you can raise your hand or you can unmute your mic and ask questions before we go to the next round of questions. Anyone would like to ask Dr. Mike any question, please, you can unmute your mic and ask. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we want to go into the part of the role of a believer, right? As a believer, I would like you to share from your personal experience how that has influenced you in your career, how that has influenced you in constantly innovate and to grow as an individual, both in your career and also from every other area that you like to share with us. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I'm still learning, right? Yeah, and so I think as a believer, one thing I believe is that we are called to be our best self, right? And yeah, that's for me. That's just it, right? We are called to be our best self, and what that means is that when I'm in an environment, then I should be adding value to the environment as much as possible. And this is for me. This is what every believer should be looking forward to. I mean, sometimes we are caught up with a job that is not what we really want, but again, we should find a way to see, okay, what can I do to make this place a better place, better than the way we met it. So for me, this is kind of the mindset I go out with, right? And because one thing again is that we don't always get what we want sometimes, or most times. We don't always get what we want. But you have to make do with what is available. And making do with what is available is that you are giving your best self to it. And I think that's also scriptural, right? That whatever your hand that's in your hand, you have to do it with the whole of your heart, basically. I think that's scriptural. So, you know, putting half of your mind to something that you have signed up for, to say, okay, I want to get paid for this because I don't like it, but I'm just going to do it the way I feel. I don't think that's good for a believer. So personally, this is what I do. So I've been in the in areas that were not so comfortable, work in rural areas. But again, one thing that comes to mind is that I'm here for a reason. I'm here to touch life. I'm here to because of the fact that this is needed for the next step of my life. So those are things that really give me the positive kind of push to say, okay, you can't continue to be in this kind of environment, and you'll be able to expect that, of course, something good is going to come out of it, basically. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let's face some set of people that are in the room here. Those are the perfectionists. Those who want things done in a particular way. They want everything done in a particular order. They do not want to take a risk. They believe that things should be done. They should have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And I know we were talking about this before, right? How does this affect creativity? And how is this a creativity killer? And how can someone who is a perfectionist, who is comfortable with a particular probably job or a particular way of doing things and does not want to take any risk at all, how can the mindset help someone like that?
Yeah, thank you. Perfectionism, I think the way I would look at that, I mean, okay, there's this story about a scientist, that developed a manuscript, right? I was supposed to kind of get this manuscript outside for peer review, for feedback, but because she was not comfortable with the level of the manuscript, and she never got it out. She got it out after 10 years. By the time the manuscript was coming out, the issue that the manuscript or the paper was supposed to address was no longer a burning issue. And I think this is what I see about trying to be perfect. In of course, being perfect is not something bad in itself, but when it stops you from taking the initial step, right? Because you need the initial step to get the first feedback, and you need that feedback to fine tune the next step. And so that's what perfectionism does. It stops you from the initial step that is needed to get a feedback to refine tune, or to refine the next step. And I think, like I said earlier, is that I mean, basically, what we need to be doing more often is to try to, as much as possible, to try something as early as possible. Of course, you're going to get feedback, right? Because one thing for people that tend to be so perfect, or trying to be perfect, is to say that, oh, they're actually scared of feedback sometimes. So they're like, oh, I don't want somebody to give me this kind of negative feedback. So I want to be perfect. But again, you have to learn that failing fast is quite important, because when you fail fast, you are going to fix it fast, and then you're going to learn fast. And what that does is that you're going to have the best of the best outside in a matter of, I mean, a very short period of time. You know.
Yeah, nobody wants to fail. Please, can you explain this? I've heard you say failing fast and recovering fast. Please, can you dwell more on this? Because nobody likes to hear the word failure. So please, can you explain it so everyone can understand the concept behind it?
Yeah. So I don't know if you want me to use challenge, but I mean, the truth is that, see, we need to also be front about this, right? Life is not a kind of a bed of roses, right? There are challenges, and and things do happen, right? But again, you see, failure itself, of course, is negative, is bad. But again, it depends on how you want to view it, and that was why I gave the story of Thomas Edison, right? You see, if you view or you see failure as completely negative thing, I don't see that failure can also be kind of a positive feedback that will help you to define your next step, then there'll be a problem, right? So when I say fail fast, is that when you want to do something, try to, of course, put your best to it, but don't hesitate to put it out there, because if you don't get feedback from people, you may not be able to kind of work around it or to make it a better product if you're working on product, right? And that's the point of. So I'm using fail this time around is about feedback, right? So for instance, if you are, let's say you are into maybe selling things, right, into commercial, and you're selling things, and you don't know what your customers actually want, for instance, probably there are no data, then you put a couple of things outside there, right? If you don't take that step, if you are caught up in the fact that, oh, I don't know if they will buy it or not, if you don't put a couple of things outside, then you may not be able to tell what your customer need. And that's the point of fail fast. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going out to say, oh, I'm not going to fail. It's about the fact that whatever you want to do it as fast as possible, get feedback from it, and learn from it. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned feedback. Let's go into feedback. Now, feedback can be scary, because some people feel that when they get feedback, their authority is challenged, their personality is challenged, and they don't take it constructively, right? Some do not take it in a positive light at all. What would you say feedback feedback be taken in a positive light, and how can someone who does not like feedback? I know some people do not even like to get feedback, and maybe that's why they become perfectionist, just like what you mentioned. How does receiving feedback help people from growing to become better than who they are? Can you just share ways that people can get feedback, especially for those who don't like to get it from random people, right? And like you see like for example, some people like to go on social media and push something out there, content out there, and they are scared of what will happen in the comment section when they push the information out there, right? What guide or what advice would you give someone who do not like feedback, especially for those who have attained some leadership position or have attained some level in their life that they feel that it's a lonely work? No one can give me this feedback. I know it all. What kind of advice do you give to people in that category? Yeah.
Yeah, when you say constructive criticism, I just remember somebody. I was actually kind of doing an appraisal for a subordinate, and we're talking about it, and she asked me how constructive is constructive criticism, right? Say the truth is that I don't think there's anybody that would say, oh, especially if it's not a good feedback, that would say, oh, I'm fine with it. It's not easy, but right. And and I also remember working in on an organization where they do this, what they call this 360 annual appraisal. I think the HR expert will know this better. So what they do is basically they get feedback from your superior, they get feedback from your contemporary, those in the same rank, and they get feedback from your subordinates, right? The truth is that you don't have control over what they give as feedback, right? But one thing you have control over is how you react to the feedback, right? And that's why, for me, I say take feedback as an opportunity. Be curious about feedback. Take it as an opportunity to ask or prompting question on how to improve, right? So no matter the feedback, but I also know that there are people that could be that also could actually just put up feedback, just like you said, on social media, that are not necessarily feedback that is going to help you to grow. Again, you have to be careful those kind of feedback when they come, right? But when it comes to feedback, either negative or positive, or probably negative, but again, is that it's going to help you to grow, is that you should be able to be open and ask more prompting question. And when I say prompting question, is to ask how that is going to improve. For instance, I was giving a feedback about something that I should do better, So instead of just saying, "Oh, thank you," it's to like, okay, this particular feedback, probably you cannot even remember that. You want to know when it happens, which is important. If it's one-on-one with someone in a professional setting, then you also want to know if they can give an example. This kind of open-mindedness actually helps with dealing with feedback generally. But just to say, feedback will also put a lot of people on the edge. There's no doubt about that. But without feedback,
should they go out to get feedback then? Should they really go out to get feedback from people who will tell them the truth? Or should they wait until they are summoned and giving those feedback?
Yeah, so I tell people that, see, you have to learn to be, first, you have to learn to be vulnerable to yourself. I don't know. Now, see, the truth is, so there's this thing I do. I don't know if, I find it interesting. I do it mostly at the beginning of the year, or if I'm taking up a new venture, is I do what I call, I do a SWOT analysis for my person, who I am, I want to look at my strength. I want to look at my weakness. I want to look at opportunity and threat, For me, this is an opportunity to be vulnerable to myself. Yeah. First, so if you can be vulnerable to yourself, it will be easier, especially if you are pushing out a particular product, to say, okay, yeah, this is what I'm doing. But again, is that, would you want to get feedback from? It depends on the way you're working. It depends on what you're working on. For instance, if I'm working on a project and I have a superior that is experienced, the best person to get feedback from will be that superior, right? To get feedback from. If I'm pushing out a product, unfortunately, if you are pushing out a product, the best feedback will come from your customers. Yeah. Then you have customers that will give negative, you have customers. But at the end of the day, is that this feedback will help you to refine. No matter how bad you think they are, it will help you to refine your product, to make it a better product.
Thank you. So we have a question in the chat room. So the question is, how do you balance complacency and not being overly ambitious in your career path? I know some people get into an organization and the culture of the organization kills their competence. Someone said culture eats competence for breakfast, right? And if, for example, you are ambitious and you're getting into an environment where they don't encourage that, right? How do you balance? I think this question is trending along this gray area. How do you balance complacency, not being overly ambitious in your career path?
Yeah, again, when we say the word overly ambitious, of course, yeah, but that might be the problem. But being ambitious itself is not a problem, sincerely. And I tell people, when you get into an organization, or even if possible before, most time you don't get all the information, is to know your career pathway and to be clear about it, right? And this is what I do personally. So I get into and have this conversation with people, right? Like, oh, I'm going to this position and I'm going to spend 3 years in this position and I intend to move to the next. Not necessarily might not be the same organization, but this is just a career. That is not overly ambitious, right? So for me, to be able to deal with that is that you have to have a clear plan for yourself and you have to know what is possible within the career that you are working. So for instance, if you are in an organization where in 5 years, probably you can become the MD. Yeah, of course, there's nothing wrong being ambitious and say, okay, yeah, I will be an MD in 5 years, which is good, right? But if you are in an organization where the best you will be is maybe 2 level, ahead of what you are now, and probably you've attained that level, and you know that there is nothing. Looking for something more challenging somewhere else is something you need to do. It's not necessarily being over ambitious, because what that does is that if you don't do that, is that it goes back to the cycle of what we just discussed about having a kind of a repetitive job, and you start feeling bored on the job. And if they don't also allow you to innovate, then of course your output, of course, is going to be affected. So for me, I think is to define what to first within yourself is to define your career growth and what is available in that particular job that you are into, right?
So would you simply say that if someone is ambitious and there are no opportunities in there, the person should start looking out?
Yeah. If you are ambitious, and again, I'm very ambitious. I am very, very ambitious, and there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, And I love to, I think probably we discussed this before. The job that I'm currently doing now, before I got the job, I was preparing for it for like 3 years. And when I got to the interview, I told them, yeah, this job, I knew I was going to. I've been looking for this opportunity for the past 3 years and all this stuff. So and sincerely, and I when I took the job also, I remember with my superior, we're having a discussion, and I told him what my 5 years plan, clear 5 years plan.
Yeah.
We did the first year, second year, and I told him the same thing. He was like, so you have to be clear, you have to be clear about what you want to get from the job. If the job has satisfied what you want to get, you move to the next level. That's the point.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We've been speaking to Dr. Mike Adeyemi. If you have questions, please, you can unmute your mic now and ask questions, or you can drop your questions in the chat room, or if you have contributions that might be very useful to the topic we've been talking about. Today, we've been talking on the growth mindset and embracing change. The floor is open, please. If you'd like to make some contribution and you want to ask questions, please feel free. Thank you. Yes. Go ahead. Lady Joy, yeah. You're muted.
Sorry, the typical tech stuff. So Dr. Mike was talking about, thank you so much, Dr. Mike. I think, it's been a very, very interesting session, lots and lots to learn around growth and fixed mindset. One of the things I wanted to add around when Dr. Mike was speaking about feedback and what people say, so he talked about that part around clarifying or seeking evidences as to the areas of potential improvement. I think another thing that does that really well to seal the deal is to also always ask, what does success look like in the end? Because a lot of times people are very quick to give feedback, and managers, but when it comes, okay, tell me, when I achieve X or when I become better at Y, what does that look like? And it's so important, because when you can have, if someone says, for example, you're not a very good communicator, that does not mean anything. I don't know how to communicate the next time. Whereas if I ask the question, where are some of the examples of what good communication look like for you? What would it look and feel like when I communicate effectively? Then you challenge the manager or the person providing the feedback to give you a lot more information that you can now use to develop yourself further. So I just wanted to add that as well is also an important thing to do, in addition to us seeking clarity on evidence of that area of improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Lady Joy. Thanks for that feedback. Yeah, Dr. Mike, you want to say something?
No. I mean yeah, I totally agree, right? Yep. Because I also know that sometimes some feedback are given because of the fact that it is required to give feedback, and then there is no clarity, and there is no kind of milestones on where the employee is supposed to go to, right? Yeah.
Okay, so any more questions? Please feel free to unmute your mic and ask. Yes, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask, or you can just drop it in the chat room. Okay. All right, so we're going to go to the next set of questions. We're rounding up right now, and the next set of questions will be basically on the steps that can lead to big changes in people's life. I'm going to use typical example of someone who is just like the example, like if someone who is in probably a regimented type of job that they do not like, what little changes can they make in their life to prepare them for the future? Just like what you said about when you went into the interview for your role, you told them, I've been preparing for this particular opportunity for the last 3 years. How would you like to advise someone who is in a particular probably job or a particular situation right now, aspire for something bigger, probably has a project that he wants to achieve, but he doesn't have the resources now. How do they make changes in order to achieve that dream?
Yeah, I don't know if I get your question clearly, but
Yeah, so let me give an example of someone who's probably, let's give somebody who is in a customer service job, right?
Yeah.
A regulated job. I don't like the job that I'm doing, right? But I'm doing it because I need to survive in the United Kingdom. Okay.
Yeah.
But I aspire to get a better job, probably a better job like, let's assume a job in human resources, for example, as a human resource manager, probably because I've trained, maybe I had my master's in that field, right? Or I want to get into IT, but I'm in customer service, and the journey it still looks like I need to take some steps. What little steps do I need to take in order to bring me close to that, and at the same time, not forfeiting what I am doing at the same time?
All right. I think, okay. Yeah. I think the first thing, the first thing would be that just like we define growth mindset as the fact that you can learn new skills, you can learn, in fact, intelligence and even capability over time through effort and dedication, is that you have to believe also that where you are going to, if you want to go into IT, if you want to do something else, is that you can learn those skills. You can, those skills, you can learn them. And, and this has been proven, right? It makes it, we talk about a property of the brain that allows you to learn whatsoever you want to learn. And that has actually also also disapprove the fact that people think that, oh, I'm born with this talent, so that's why this guy's, or that person has that talent, or I don't have that talent, that's why it's better. You can learn anything you want to, but it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take perseverance. And I think this is where the problem is. Then the other thing is that you have to embrace new challenges, right? You have to be, because the truth is that there is opportunity, for growth and to innovate in every challenge. So you have to be open to challenges, right, as much as possible. Then again, is that even when you begin to kind of learn new skills, of course, learning new skills means that you have to be dedicated to what I call continuous learning, continuous. Maybe you take online courses with respect to that, So, but aside that, also, there's something I usually talk about. Say, you should learn to celebrate effort and progress. And this is the difference between actually someone that is open-minded, also growth mindset, and somebody with fixed mindset. Now, what does it mean to celebrate effort and progress and not just achievement? You see, most of us actually grew up from a school system that celebrates achievement. So you have to be first position, then you are celebrated. Nobody celebrates progress or effort, right? And what that means is that if you don't do that, then you have a tendency to not see the effort that is being put, but to see only the achievement alone, and complacency can set in. So learn to celebrate little effort that you're putting in. So if you are learning a new skill, celebrate the effort you're putting in. Hoping that with time, of course, you are going to get to a point where these skills will be useful. Then lastly is that, wherever you want to go, someone said that what you cannot measure, you cannot improve, right? So if you really want to improve something, you must be able to set goals. So you are at this point today because, I'm doing this job today, I want to learn how to become, let me see, maybe business analyst, right? Then you have to set a goal that, okay, I'll set a goal starting from today, day 0. By July, I should land 1, 2, 3. So it helps you to keep to the progress of how you are actually moving. Then, most importantly, again, is that I'll still come back to what I talked about, doing a kind of a SWOT analysis for you. It's quite important. I think everybody should do this. If you've not tried that before, it's quite an interesting. There are tools that you can actually use to just look at what is your strength. Because why that is important also is it helps you. I think Pastor B said it on Sunday that sometimes we think that success is about focusing on our weakness, but instead success is actually about knowing what your strength is. The value that you want to add to wherever you are going to is in your strength, as much as possible. So you have to know what that strength is and try to develop it further, and try, of course, you also be able to identify opportunities that might come and try to, yeah. So I think those are the points that came to my head. I would say, okay, if you are trying to move from one stage of your life, trying to get a new job or trying to do something new, then you should be able to put all this together to say, okay, I'm starting today. I want to see myself in 6 months, doing this differently.
Any place you can signpost us for resources if people would like to get to constantly educate themselves and grow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you want to learn. So, it depends on what you want to learn, basically, but I know there are resources all over. I use Coursera. Just to say, so recently I started a project. That's by coincidence, actually. Coincidentally, in Nigeria for my organization. And I realized that I'll be working with some analytical tools which I've never used before. For those people that are into statistics, will know what to call the R package or the R statistic package. So this year I'm there to just start learning that over time. So, and I mean, there are open resources depending on what Coursera is my go-to, basically. I use Coursera a lot depending on what the kind of you want to develop, the kind of skills you want to develop.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, Dr. Mike. Thank you for giving us a lot, giving back. Any final words before we round up? Any final words you like to put out there on the growth mindset to anyone who listens to this video, probably watch this video later in the future? Any final words?
My final word would be, what we discussed, to be the fact that, don't hold back. I know people don't like fail, but you have to still fail fast and fix fast and learn fast as much as possible for you to get, ahead of the curve. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, Pastor
Thank
Bayo.
you. Thank you for having me.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. Dr. Mike, you're preaching for the next 2 weeks. I thought that was amazing. The discussion was rich. Thank you, Deji. Thank you to the team that organized this. Thank you to everybody that joined. That was awesome. I could go on and talk about the things Dr. Mike said, but there's one that I really want to bring out. Fail fast. That I kept on thinking about that. Fail fast. One of the challenges we have is that we have theories in our head about how things should go. You have this CV that you think, my God, it's going to get me interviews. But you've applied and applied and applied and applied. It didn't get you what you thought. That's that feeling fast is talking about. The market is giving you feedback. You got to change something. You got to update it. You have a business idea that you thought would make you millions. He said the feedback from your customers is that they're not getting what you're saying. You're trying to be perfect before you roll out your ideas. These feedback are important for us to review our ideas, our concept. The idea in themselves are not wrong. The career trajectory you want is not wrong. The problem is that we don't get that feedback to be able to improve ourselves. So I'll tell you this story. When I came to this country, I failed fast, very fast, because I came from an African country where you point at people. When you really want to make your point, you shout, you are aggressive. But my manager called me into a room and said, you're not going to make it here if you keep on doing that. You keep on pointing at people, if you're strong where I come from, you point at people. And I quickly got that feedback, and that helped me in life. And that's one of the things Dr. Mike was saying. Look, I will encourage you to go on YouTube, on our YouTube page. And can you hear me okay, Deji? Because my internet is saying it's unstable. Can you hear me? Yeah. Just listen to it over and over again, please. He said too many things. hearing properly is a problem, but hearing and not using is another problem, or missing the points he made is another big problem I want us to avoid. Go and take notes, put action point into what he has said. We don't have any excuse to fail. In this generation, no excuse not to make it. No excuse not to be the best we can be. Growth mindset is what we need. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. And I pray that God's light will shine upon everybody that has listened. I pray that your path will shine brighter and brighter. You will know what to do. You will take challenges as opportunities, like he has said. You will take feedback from your environment and be all that God has intended for you to be. Look out for the more improved, the review through session. These are practical steps for us to become all God has made us to be as believers. Thank you so much. Deji, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pastor Bayo. Next week, we'll be talking about the money markets. We'll be talking about budgets and investment options for you as believers, where you need to put your money in that you're sure that will help you to have financial growth. All right, get ready next week. We'll bring in another speaker who'll be talking on this money market. Every week, we're going to be talking about new topics that will add value to you.